Hello, my name is Ian Sutton. Welcome to this video, the first in a series on the theme of Net Zero by 2050, Technology for a Changing Climate. In response to the climate crisis, many business and industry leaders have adopted a Net Zero by 2050 program. The purpose of this video series and of the matching newsletters, blogs, ebooks and books is to provide these leaders with realistic information to do with the technologies that can assist them in achieving their goal. The emphasis here is on the word realistic. The material in these letters addresses the hard questions that business leaders ask when looking at new technologies. Questions such as, does it work? Is it safe? Can it be implemented and scaled up so as to have a meaningful impact by the year 2050? How much does it cost to develop, implement, commission and operate? Could it generate new sources of profitable revenues? And what could go wrong? We are publishing a series of letters and blog posts. These videos use the material in those letters. Therefore, if you would like to see the text of this video, please visit the Substack address shown. Further information to do with our publications and products is provided at the iansutton.com site. Once more, welcome to this series. If you find that the material we publish to be of value, please consider subscribing either to this video series or to the newsletters. That way you will receive information to do with the letters and posts as they are published. Here you see the first page of this particular newsletter. To reiterate, we're here to help business and industrial leaders with their decisions regarding technology and net zero. The point being, there is no shortage of good ideas when it comes to climate change. The challenge is figuring out which of them actually work. And given that we have to implement them economically and at scale within just 28 years. Moving along through the newsletter, the materials in these letters address the hard questions that we've already looked at. Does it work? Is it safe? That kind of thing. Broadly speaking, the posts are in two groups. The first group, of which this is in the first group, describe and evaluate different types of alternative technology. They actually follow the structure of the book that we're writing on this, called Net Zero by 2050, Technology for a Changing Climate. The posts in the second group are more news-oriented. They discuss current developments in alternative technology and implications of recent policy changes. For example, the post to do with coal and dirty coal describes ways in which coal can be burned so that it can be considered as being clean. To learn more about the ebooks, videos, books and other services, please visit the Sutton Technical Books site at the address shown. Let's look at the background to this series. The climate is changing and the consequences are getting worse. Droughts, floods and wildfires are more frequent and more severe. Even places such as the Pacific Northwest that were thought to be safe are suffering the consequences of the changing climate. For example, in the year 2021, the province of British Columbia in Canada experienced a heat dome, fierce forest fires and flooding caused by an atmospheric river. As we have seen, in response to this crisis, many business leaders have adopted a net zero by 2050 goal. This strategy is not just only good for the planet, it can give those businesses a competitive advantage. One way they can achieve this goal is to adopt technologies that do not emit greenhouse gases, particularly carbon dioxide or CO2. Some businesses are also investing in carbon capture techniques that remove CO2 from the atmosphere. Here is an example of the type of change that is already taking place. The picture shows the chief executive of the Ford Motor Company, James Farley, standing in front of an electric F-150 pickup truck. The text associated with the picture reads, Ford Motor plans to increase its production capacity of electric vehicles to 600,000 units globally by 2023. That's next year. This is a very ambitious goal and is indicative of the type of change that companies such as Ford feel that they must undertake in response to climate change. What is the role of government in all this? There is no shortage of books, reports, web pages, videos that describe the climate change dilemma. They explain what is causing the changes and what the consequences may be. The image shown on the next page is from one of the most important of these reports. It is the cover of the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, Special Report on Global Warming, published in the year 2018. This is an authoritative document and one that we refer to many times in this series of letters and videos. Here is the cover page of the IPCC report. The problem is that, having described the predicaments in which we find ourselves, most of these publications then leave the ball lying on the ground. They basically say, we have a dilemma, someone somewhere needs to do something about it. The sketch at the bottom illustrates this difficulty. We have a climate crisis. We want to achieve a net zero world. How do we get from where we are to where we want to be? This is where we receive so little guidance. It is generally assumed that national government and international organizations will take the necessary actions. Here you see two of the leaders from the recent COP26 conference held in Glasgow in November 2021. They both gave great speeches, but the fact is that the practical response has been very lacking and ineffective. In fact, the COP26 conference was, as the title tells us, the 26th such conference. Governments have been talking about climate change for more than a generation. Yet the chart on the next page shows that emissions of carbon dioxide have climbed inexorably during that time. Overlaid on the chart are some of the major international events that have taken place in that time period. They seem to have had little impact. Here is the chart I was talking about. It shows the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere starting from the 1950s. The measurement is at the top of a mountain in Hawaii to get away from industrial and domestic pollution. You see that there's been a steady rise since the 1950s, a very smooth rise of carbon dioxide from about 310 parts per million to about, today we're running about 420 or maybe a little bit higher. Overlaid on the chart are some of the COP meetings, COP 1, 6, 17, so on, and the IPCC reports. We'll explain it in further later videos more about the IPCC. Clearly these COPs have been, and other international meetings have not been achieving anything. A new approach is needed. And this is the opportunity. It's the opportunity for businesses to provide leadership, not because they want to do good, but because they want to be successful commercially. They also want to avoid what is sometimes called their own Kodak moment, something we will talk about in the next page of this letter. Here we see a sign of the Kodak company a company that failed to adapt to changing technology. With regard to climate change, the following business and engineering concerns are crucial. We need to find some means of storing large quantities of energy economically. Intermittent power sources such as solar and wind are operating typically for about a third of the time. Usually when the customers don't need it so much. So bulk energy storage is needed. Many transportation systems, ships, airplanes, trains, trucks, require liquid fuels, and they cannot easily be electrified. So new types of liquid fuels that do not emit greenhouse gases are needed. And many net zero programs rely on some means of removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Technologies for this are still at the demonstration phase. Here we see a list of some of the technologies that we will be discussing and analysing. I won't go through the list now, but you can see it's quite extensive. There are a lot of options to consider. All of them have their benefits and their drawbacks. We will go through them in much more detail in future videos and newsletters. Throughout these publications, we will look at the status of each technology using the very simple phase gate diagram that you see here. We have just 4 phases: concept, demonstrate, commercialize, and implement. Given that we have just 28 years to go, any technology that is still at the phase 1 or phase 2 stage is probably not going to have the kind of worldwide impact that we are hoping for. Well, we hope that you have found this introduction useful and informative. If you would like to know more, please subscribe to our regular newsletter and/or this video series. To learn more about what we are doing, please visit the Sutton Technical Book site at iansutton.com. Once more, thank you for joining us.